It starts with innocuous banter and small talk at the corner shop. It escalates to intrusive questions which compromise your privacy. It then becomes unsolicited advice and transmogrifies into unheralded visits to your home. Before you know it, there's a hostile takeover of your entire life. That person is everywhere. This person co-opts and collaborates with your nearest and dearest, makes appearances in your workplace, castigates you and chastises you for being a bad mother or the wrong spouse. It is intolerable, this invasion, and you react either with aggression or with withdrawal. Either way, you are mildly traumatized. It's an attenuated form of abuse. This person has insinuated herself into your life uninvited and gradually unwelcome. This is the topic of today's video. When people escape reality by appropriating other people's lives. My name is Sam Vaknin. I'm the author of Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. I'm also a professor of psychology. Now, before we proceed, to remind you, at the end of May, May 22nd to May 25th, there's going to be a seminar, a totally free seminar. And it deals with healing and recovery from narcissistic abuse based on science and evidence-based practices. So those of you who would like to learn more from authoritative sources, studies, psychological texts, scholarship, and so on and so forth, are invited to attend this seminar, 3 days, free of charge, in Skopje, the capital of North Macedonia and one of the most beautiful cities in the world, in Europe, I'm sorry. And so I'm going to place a link in the description of the video. Click on the link and just follow the instructions to be there. I welcome all and sundry, clinicians and laymen alike. And so I hope to see you. People who have had a difficult childhood, people who have had an intolerable, unbearable adolescence, people who have gone through what we call adverse childhood experiences in dysfunctional families, people who have witnessed as children and adolescents, have witnessed domestic violence, have witnessed betrayal, have witnessed aggression in a variety of ways, have experienced depression and anxiety as children, substance abuse, etc., etc. These kind of people dislike reality. And I'm being charitable with my words. They can't tolerate reality. Reality is threatening. Reality is suffocating. Reality is too harsh. Reality cannot be contemplated, nor can it be countenanced or accepted. And so these people escape reality. They avoid it. Now, there's a variety of ways of escaping reality. You could, for instance, become delusional. Narcissism, pathological narcissism, is a form of delusional disorder. You could become grandiose. You could distort your cognition. You could impair your reality testing by reframing reality in a way which should be more palatable and acceptable, more complementary and more helpful. And so escaping reality has a variety of modularities and a variety of ways and paths. And one of them I wish to discuss today. It's when you escape your own life by appropriating someone else's life. When you take over, and it's usually a hostile takeover of someone else's existence, identity, accomplishments, interests, hobbies, children, spouse, etc., etc. This is a very pernicious and insidious process. And very often, the appropriator is not even aware of what he or she is doing. I started this video by describing the ineluctable, inexorable process of insinuation, when you insinuate yourself into another person's life, gradually, imperceptibly, glacially, incrementally, sort of inch by inch, encroaching on the turf and the territory of another person's privacy, the domain behind another person's firewalls and boundaries. You're there, omnipresent, and you sort of imbue and permeate every cell, every function of that person's life. This is insinuation, and it is the more benign variant of what I'm talking about, life appropriation. Now, these people with adverse childhood experiences usually fled home, not necessarily physically, but they definitely fled home mentally, psychologically. Some of them have resorted to street life. They spend much more time outside the confines of the family unit or the homestead than inside. Um, some of them ended up in libraries. Some of them ended up as drug addicts in street corners. Some of them devolved into prostitution. Some of them spend most of their time in nightclubs and so on. But generally in the street. These are the street children. Street life is a substitute for a home life that had become threatening, unacceptable, unpalatable, intolerable, unbearable. Street life affords a simulacrum, an imaginary family, an environment that is so flexible and so unconstrained that it could be customized and tailor-made to fit the needs and to cater to the requirements of the budding adolescent. Street life is an example of giving up on one's existence, rejecting one's life, absconding with one's reality, and then sort of finding or constituting a substitute. Street life, of course, is not real. It's not sustainable. It's not long-term. It cannot be maintained in any way, shape, or form without extreme adverse consequences, and yet it is deemed by many children and adolescents preferable to what home has to offer. There's the assumption of a new identity. When one exits the family nest, when one rejects one's existence and one's life within the confines and the restraints and the constraints of a dysfunctional family, that prison that masquerades as a loving environment, then one adopts or assumes a new identity. And because this new identity has nothing to do with the old identity, is the exact opposite, these two identities are mutually exclusive, this creates what is known as identity disturbance or identity diffusion. The person who is fleeing home and finding himself or herself in another alternative parallel reality or environment, this person has two conflicting identities and keeps vacillating in a pendulum-like movement between the two of them, or even multiplicity of them. This is a close simulation of multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder, only without the dissociation. And so now here's an issue that this kind of person is not attached or is not bonded to any one specific identity and keeps seeking alternatives. This kind of person is trying to constantly construct identities on the fly with the help of other people. And if other people refuse to collaborate or are reluctant to do so, coercion sets in. And this coercive streak to insinuation is what sets it apart from good friendship. When you insinuate into someone else's life, yourself into someone else's life, you are being coercive. And usually the recipient of your magnanimity and largesse, your unbridled altruism and charity, your prosocial and communal ostentatious displays, the recipients of all these are very, very bitter and resentful of your conduct. They want you gone. It's not the same in good friendship, of course. So insinuation is a form of aggression. It is a form of externalized aggression, or actually passive aggression. It is as if you're co-opting other people, you're using them as raw material, you're using their lives as raw material in order to construct a new identity, a new life, a new existence for yourself. You're objectifying other people, their families, their spouses, their children, their workplaces, their circle of friends. You are leveraging and abusing your access to all these in order to benefit somehow, in order to acquire a modicum of sense of stability and safety and belonging and acceptance and warmth. You are simulating the family you have never had, using other people as statists, as actors in your own theater production, in the movie that's unfolding and unreeling in your head. They are nothing but actors. They follow a script. They're props in your theater play, on your stage. So insinuation is about deanimating other people, converting them into inert objects, into participants, unwilling participants in a fantasy. So insinuation is a subset, a subspecies of a shared fantasy. Then involves, of course, grandiosity. Now, the insinuated scenario, this newly adopted family, newly adopted environment, newly adopted set of circumstances, newly adopted friends, however unwillingly and involuntarily and reluctantly, as I say, this insinuation involves a variety of behaviors and tactics. The most famous of which is gossip. Gossip is a way of leveraging information, real or imagined, exclusive or public, leveraging information in order to somehow exert control over specific individuals. Individuals who consume the gossip, who listen to the gossip, or the individual gossiped about. Either way, gossip is used as leverage, as an instrument, as a tool of enslavement, a kind of social control using reputational cost. And so gossip involves shaming. Gossip involves exposure. Gossip involves, as I said, a cost to one's reputation. And gossiping is used by insinuators. Gossiping is used by people who appropriate other people's lives, is used as a vector of attack, the way a virus invades the body. It is through gossip, via gossip, and with gossip that the insinuating person invades and then occupies the newly acquired space, the new pathological narcissistic space, within which, exactly like a parasite, the insinuator constructs a new life, acquires a new family, appropriates a new identity. So gossip is the first step. Gossip easily devolves into becoming a busybody. You remember Miss Marple? Miss Marple in Agatha Christie's books? She solves crimes, but in essence, she's a gossiping busybody. She is not a positive figure, quite a negative one actually. And so gossiping devolves into busybody, and busybodying is when you make other people's business your own. You exert judgment, you criticize, you advise, you manipulate, you underhandedly participate, you appear and disappear and reappear. You're everywhere and nowhere. You are an emanation, an apparition, an atmosphere, an ambience. You're there all the time, even when you're not. And so the busybody is someone who appropriates other people's lives and make them, these lives, their own. So a busybody would interfere, invade, intrude dramatically, uh, insensibly, um, inconsiderately, and unempathically, disempathically in other people's um, events, occasions, conundrums, conflicts, debates, stresses and strains, anxieties, and so on and so forth. The busybody would tend to exacerbate tension and stress, not to ameliorate it. The higher the conflict, the higher the intensity of the conflict, the greater the tension, the anxiety, and the stress, the bigger the cracks through which the busybody can penetrate and invade the existence of other people. And then once she's in, or once he is in, you cannot get rid of them. They are all the time there. They're omnipresent. And they know everything. They make it their business to know everything about you. They are like these relentless, ruthless, unstoppable, inexorable researchers or scientists, and they make you the guinea pig or the lab rat, and your life the topic of study. Miss Marple again comes to mind. Behind all these behaviors, which are unsavory, and many of them are socially unacceptable, and sometimes mildly threatening, there's an ominous undertone to all this. Behind all these behaviors is an attempt to look for a substitute family, a substitute social cell, some belonging, some acceptance, some love, some empathy, some compassion, or as a minimum, some attention. The insinuator is a beggar and is not a chooser. There's no discrimination. There's no preference for type. This kind of person is so driven by the need to belong and to belong and to be accepted that he or she would compromise anyone and everyone, would invade any family, would involve themselves in anyone's life, would take over aspects of existence of everyone around them. It is like a contagion. Once the need, once the drive, once the desire and the urge to construct an alternative life takes over, the person who is thus compromised proceeds to infect the entire environment and to dismantle barriers and boundaries and rules of conduct and scripts. And it's a very, very destructive type of activity. It generates a lot of conflict. The people who are vulnerable or susceptible to such attacks, the people who find themselves at the receiving end of an insinuator or an invader or an appropriator, initially, usually succumb. They collaborate. They want to be their people pleasers, or they want to be nice and kind, or they see some benefits in the intrusion of the insinuator. But gradually they realize that they have no life, that they are being micromanaged, controlled. They can't make independent decisions. People around them are being hijacked, kidnapped, literally. Their own children turn against them. Their spouse becomes paranoid and suspicious. There's a lot of malevolence involved. Gossip is malicious in the majority of cases and is weaponized in order to penetrate and take over. So then there is a reversal, and the victims of life appropriation strike back. And this, of course, leads to conflict. The takeover always ends up as hostile. The merger and the fusion, the adopted family, which are the goals of the appropriator. The appropriator wants to merge and fuse and become one symbiotically with new people, with new friends, with a new family, with someone else's spouse, with the workplace of someone. So there's this attempt to belong, to insert oneself, to intrude, to invade other people's environments, and then to adopt them, to become one of them. And so this merger fusion adoption, um, which ultimately leads to conflict, ends up with the expulsion of the appropriator and the insinuator, except in extremely rare cases. Yet the damage is done. There's a lot of bad blood left behind. There are traces of the conflict. There are memories. There are accusations flying around. There's a lot of suspicion, doubt, hypervigilance, and even paranoid ideation. People touched by the appropriator or the insinuator are never the same. Their lives are changed forever. It's a form of abuse. And even when the appropriator and insinuator is long gone, his or her shadow lingers. This penumbral semi-presence, which is kind of tainted and contaminated one's life, is never really expunged. And so next time someone approaches you and claims to be highly empathic, empath, for example, nice, kind, um, claims to have your well-being in mind, your welfare, is offering to be helpful, volunteering to do things for you, um, gets along with your spouse and children, visits your workplace, offers you free lunches and other benefits and gifts, be very careful. This might be an invader, a Trojan horse. You may end up being conquered from the inside, hollowed out, vacated. You may end up losing everything that constitutes your life and your reality because the other person has neither no life nor reality and is looking to take over yours, to appropriate yours, to become, in other words, you.